HCAM TV thanks you for watching this presentation. We'd love for you to become a member and use your creativity at our station. Please visit hinghammedia.org or call us at 781-836-5094 if you would like to learn more.
You are watching Jack and Si's Big Five.
Good evening and welcome to a very special 6th episode of Jack and Si's Big Five. I'm Simon Brady, that's Jack Mannion, and we are happy to be joined by our very special guest, Mr. Swanson, the brand new principal at Hingham High School, to talk all things athletics and most importantly the brand new athletic director. Mr. Swanson, thank you very much for coming on this
Thanks
evening.
so much, Simon. It's a pleasure.
Great to have you on,
Jack,
Mr. Swanson.
Great to be here.
And we're going to get right into it. First of all, congratulations on the new principal position. This is our new principal. And we're going to start off with your athletic director search. And one of the biggest things is we saw at one point there was over 90 candidates for this job. What were the biggest factors in qualifying a new athletic director?
Right. Well, obviously, really big job.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been principal now for about 6 weeks, and in that short time, we've had to first settle on a new assistant principal to replace myself. I had been in that role for 10 years, so that was job number one. And job number two, just as important, was the decision or the process of recruiting and hiring a replacement for Margaret Conity, who has been a terrific athletic director at Hingham High School now for close to a decade, and she certainly will be greatly missed. She was athletic director of the year in Massachusetts a couple years ago, which just provides some evidence of the great work that she's done for us, and she'll be greatly missed. But obviously really coveted position at a great school with a great athletic tradition, and you're right, we did have close to 90 applicants for this position, including a number of current athletic directors at other schools. And after a lengthy and really pretty intense process, we just announced to our school committee last night, as a matter of fact, that Jim Quattromoni, who has been the athletic director at Hull High School for the last 11 years and has been varsity basketball coach at Hull for the past 15 years, will be replacing Ms. Conity as our next athletic director.
Very good.
Yeah.
You create a perfect segue for us. I was going to ask next, tell us why parents who have kids in Hingham Athletics or are associated with Hingham Athletics, period, should have confidence in Mr. Quattromoni in his first year.
Sure. Well, I guess first of all, the fact that he survived that really intense process, the lengthy screening and before a really large and varied and really qualified selection committee of about 14 people who interviewed 8 semifinalists, and then 2 finalists who continued on in the second round of interviews and a public forum as well. Mr. Quattromoni really did a terrific job throughout that whole process, and no surprise when you look at his record. His resume at first glance was hugely impressive. He's been not only a very successful basketball coach for 15 years and was at one point president of the Massachusetts Basketball Coaches Association. He was at one point Division IV South Coach of the Year in basketball. His teams have been very successful, but his leadership at Hull really has been tremendous. And I mean, there are many ways to evidence that, and probably none more powerful than to consider the fact that he, probably more than anyone else, helped to save Hull Athletics when its budget was not reduced but eliminated entirely a number of years ago. And this is maybe the thing he's best known for. During the economic downturn in the last recession, times were tough enough for the Hull School Department that they actually eliminated entirely the athletic budget. And so the principal there, several other administrators, and especially Mr. Quattromoni, really took on that challenge of keeping Hull Athletics alive, and they had to do it entirely through private fundraising. So to me, that's really a tremendous example of leadership, and you see it when you meet him. He's got a lot of charisma, he's got tremendous passion, he's really committed to athletics, and he has a great sense of why high school sports matter and what the role of sports is in a high school, why it's so important. And he's worked so hard to keep Hull Athletics alive, and that's his hometown. That's where he grew up, that's where he played high school basketball. He's been very committed to them. But he's also ready now, after 11 years on the job there and granted a smaller program, of devoting himself to a new and probably even bigger challenge, to be at the helm of our athletic program, which really is one of the biggest in the state. We offer almost any athletic program that you possibly could at the high school level, and our teams have been so successful that's the next big challenge, and he's certainly ready for it.
Very admirable, certainly.
Yeah.
That's a great resume, and we look forward to having him as the new athletic director. Going forward now, one of the biggest things you're known for as well as being a vice principal in past years is your experience in the baseball program, and you have a great history with baseball. How big of a factor was that in making your decision for the athletic director?
Well, thanks, Jack. And I certainly have enjoyed my association with Hingham High School athletics for 10 years now, and particularly my involvement with the baseball program and having been a coach. That's maybe the hardest part of leaving my previous role and moving on to the role of becoming principal, which I'm so excited for. The hardest part, I think, for me is to be letting go of some of the things I've enjoyed greatly, including being able to be a coach.
Absolutely.
Certainly hope to stay involved and will remain extremely supportive of not just the baseball program, but all of our athletic programs. And so it was great to be able to bring that perspective to the work of selecting our next athletic director. Certainly, we were really sad to learn that Miss Connerty was going to be retiring.
Yeah.
She's been tremendous.
Did a great
She's
job.
been a friend and a great colleague, right, and has built a great foundation. And now Mr. Quattrimo will have the opportunity to build on that and take what she's helped to establish and take it. We hope take it even to another level.
Very good, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so with the new shakeup, obviously you yourself being principal and Mr. Quattromoni stepping in, a lot of shakeup, and I guess people within the Hingham athletic community won't really know what to expect maybe until a few months into the process. But how, for your first year with you as principal and Mr. Quattromoni as AD, would define a successful year at Hingham High School in the athletics?
Right. Well, we're really excited about it. It's obviously a time of major change in the school district as a whole. You know, we've got a new principal, we've got a new assistant principal, a new athletic director, we have a new director of English. So whether we're talking about academics or school leadership or athletics, there's a lot of change there. But in most of those cases, these are people who are very familiar with Hingham schools and really passionate and committed to the schools and who've been part of the culture and community there for some time, with the exception of our new assistant principal, who actually is coming to us from Wellesley High School. And I think you guys are going to like him very much as well, and I know our students will and our faculty will. Also has a great athletic background himself. He was a college basketball player at Wheaton and a captain of their team. His name is Colin Shattuck, originally from Maine, and he's been a special education teacher at Wellesley High School for the last 7 years. And I think he'll have a lot to contribute to our school as well, both in athletics and elsewhere. But to answer your question, what's going to be a successful year? I think it's continuing much of the great tradition that we've had, and then trying to build with the strengths of the new people that we have there. There's so much about Hingham High School that is already phenomenal. It is great, and I've loved every second of working there for the past decade now, literally a full decade, and just excited about continuing that, and I hope, building on it, and as I said, take it to the next level.
All right, well, we thank you very much for coming on the show and wish you the best of luck going into this school year coming up shortly.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations once again on your new position. We look forward to utmost success in the athletic program and your success as principal as well. So
thanks so much, Jack. I appreciate it. Thank you, Simon. You guys are doing a great job with this program, and we appreciate your ongoing interest in Hingham High School sports as well. And you guys have both been a big part of that, both the basketball and baseball programs, and we're grateful for that as well.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, we're going to shift back now to the world of pro sports in the NFL. We just want to say, again, a quick thank you to Mr. Swanson for coming on to the show and wish him and the Hingham administration best of luck this year at Hingham High School. But back to the NFL now. Dallas All-Pro second-year running back Ezekiel Elliott was recently given a 6-game suspension by the NFL for a domestic violence case. The investigation of this incident has been ongoing since July 16th of 2016, last summer. So Jack, is America's team in serious jeopardy of missing the postseason this year after a 13-3 campaign last year?
Yes, Simon. I believe even without the suspension, there was a good chance they would be in for a rough year this year after a huge unexpected year last year, as led by a few rookies in Dak Prescott and running back Ezekiel Elliott. Not too many teams had much tape on these guys. Now after a whole year of seeing a bunch of tape, the schedule gets a lot harder, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. They're always every time they seem to build you up, they always seem to let you down. So this is perfectly set up to be with the hardest schedule letdown year for them anyway. Now they're losing probably their best player for the first 6 weeks of the season. But the one thing about this is in that division, we've seen this a few years ago as well, when Tony Romo went out for the first 6 or 7 weeks of the year, they were shuttling through different quarterbacks, Brandon Whedon, Matt Castle, losing games, and when he came back, they were about 2-7, and they were still in the division race. So no matter how poorly they perform in those first couple weeks in that division, anything can happen. The Redskins I don't see doing much better. The Eagles are probably going to be stuck in the mud with a young quarterback and a poor offense at this point. And the Giants were only a wild card caliber team last year and haven't made too many improvements. So no matter how bad they start off with this suspension, they may still be in the race. But regardless, it's going to be a tough sledding for them this year with a tougher division and some things like this going wrong to start the season already.
As you've said, this division is always unpredictable, it seems, in the NFC East. But I'm just looking at the Cowboys' schedule in that first 6 games. You host the Giants, you go at Green Bay, you go at Denver, you play Arizona. You could see the Dallas Cowboys realistically going 2-4, 3-3 in this stretch, struggling. If you just look at the dynamic without Ezekiel Elliott, obviously they have Darren McFadden as a backup who's had success in his career but is injury prone, Alfred Morris as well. So they're not totally in shambles at the running back position. But you look at Dak Prescott, who thrived last year off intermediate routes, throwing to guys like Terrence Williams and Cole Beasley and Jason Witten. Now defenses, the opposition will load up guys in the box, force Dak Prescott to make more plays than he had to. There's a loss of that balance of offense. Now that Ezekiel Elliott is gone, the onus is more on Dak Prescott, who's still young and hasn't proved yet with this kind of pressure that he can make these type of plays that he's going to have to make in these first 6 weeks with now teams having a full year of tape on him, which they didn't have last year. So this is going to be a big gut check now for Dak Prescott as he leads this team. And another factor that really makes you question the Cowboys going forward is Ezekiel Elliott. Other than giving you great production at the running back position, he also allowed the Dallas Cowboys to have great ball control and control possessions for much of the game. Now they're not going to have the ball for as much possession time, and that puts a lot of pressure on a defense which has struggled in the past, again, as they do every year, dealing with injuries and suspensions, and they lost 3 key members in their secondary. So it looks like a lot is up in the air for Dallas following this suspension, and in an NFC East that's unpredictable, but with viable teams like the Giants and Eagles and Redskins who are all capable of being around the playoff hunt, you can very realistically seeing them miss the playoffs this year.
Yeah, you make a good point about defense is going to be loading up the box this year, and they were going to be doing that regardless if Elliott was there or not, because they have a bunch of tape on him and saw that last year. His favorite target was guys like Jason Witten or Cole Beasley that are just 10-yard, 15-yard passes. But one of the big things that may emerge this year is, as we saw a couple years ago when Tony Romo was throwing him passes, Dez Bryant, when he's targeted more often, is one of the top 3-4 receivers in football. And if Dak's able to get the ball down the field, they may be a more high-flying offense this year. But the risk that comes with that is they will be much more turnover-prone. But in my opinion, if Dez is more involved this year, the offense will be much more explosive. So that could be a positive going forward.
Yeah, I just question that only because Dak Prescott seems to have not the ability to throw the deep ball, which is what Dez likes the most. It's not really his style, so it'll be an adjustment for him. Last point, the Cowboys' history tends to repeat himself. The Dallas Cowboys have not had back-to-back seasons of 10 or more wins since 1996. So after a great season like last year, they tend to fall off. I expect that to happen again, but we're going to move on.
With all things going wrong, it definitely points in that direction. But moving forward here, back to baseball. The scorching hot Red Sox just wrapped up a very important series in the Bronx, came back to win the series 2-1 with a dramatic Game 3 win over the Yankees. Simon, how important was this series to the AL East Division race, and what did you learn from the Red Sox this weekend?
Well, I think it showed a real testament of the Red Sox character, because they, in Game 1 in an important series, which they knew was critical, had a 3-0 lead going into the bottom of the 8th and gave up 5 runs in that frame and ended up losing the game 5-4. But didn't hang their heads, didn't sulk. They bounced back and won in a big way the following day, and then won a tight game in Game 3 and gained some ground. Prior to last night's loss to Cleveland, the Sox were up 5.5 games on the Yankees, which was the highest division lead for anyone in the division this year. So gaining that ground is huge. Especially doing that on the road in the Bronx, a hostile environment where the Yankees definitely saw an opportunity after that first win to maybe take all 3 or 2 of them, but the Sox bounced back. A huge bright spot, obviously, in this series is Andrew Benintendi.
Oh, yeah.
In the month of August, he's hitting 15 of 31, which is just incredible. He's had 4 home runs and 5 stolen bases, so he's doing damage at the plate and on the base paths. He had 2 shots into right field for homers against the Yankees. So he's obviously an integral part of the Red Sox high-powered offense. And with that bounce-back character, the Sox batting well, and their pitching continuing to withstand and be at least formidable, the Sox continue to look good here down the stretch.
I agree. We showed a lot of character in that comeback in Game 3 with Rafael Devers' home run in the top of the 9th. And then in extra innings, Benintendi had the go-ahead hit. So that was a big rally, big comeback win, and it was prime time, 8 o'clock on ESPN. So it had a playoff feel to it in that game. But it was more impressive to me that the way we lost the first game of that series, we were up big, and they made a big comeback in the 7th and 8th inning, and we didn't hang our heads. They showed up, played the next game, won Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday night on the big stage, won Game 3 with Chris Sale pitching again. So that was a big series, but what's also going to tell us a lot because we play the Yankees 9 times in a span of 23 days. We'll see them again very soon back at our place, and then one more series with them. So it was a great series for us, but it's going to be a quick turnaround, so we're going to have to prove it again next time.
Yeah, I think the Sox, it's a very critical stretch following this series with the Yankees. They played Cleveland last night. Upcoming here, they have St. Louis, who's only a game and a half out of first place in the NL Central. You have the Orioles, and as you said, you have another series with the Yankees. So there's plenty of good teams coming up that the Sox obviously can't take lightly. And as the competition keeps building, we're heading towards September here very soon, and it's very important that the Sox take care of these series and win, take at least 2 of 3 from all the good teams, because that just builds a ton of confidence heading into the postseason.
It's very important to keep winning these series, and one thing that's been a very encouraging sign lately is the pitching staff has been great. Drew Pomerantz has been outstanding, and he's only our 3rd or 4th projected starter. Chris Sale once again with a great series there. Now the bullpen's looking a lot better. We've made some big upgrades, and Craig Kimbrell has been outstanding. So that's a huge sign. The defense has been great in the playoffs. Those are 2 of the most important things. Some wild card teams have snuck into the playoffs and then went on big runs because they have the best pitching for a few games in a series, and that's really very important. Pitching and defense wins championships.
Definitely. All right, we're going to move on to our final topic of the day. We're going to transition back to the NFL. After just rushing for 31 yards on 9 carries and 1 touchdown in his NFL debut, Jacksonville Jaguars rookie running back Leonard Fournette made some questionable comments about the level of difficulty of the NFL game. Fournette said, quote, "A lot of people are like, it's going to be easy, but me playing the SEC, that kind of helped me out. It's going to be fast, but playing the SEC, that kind of helped me out. I think to me it was really easy," end quote. So Jack, will these comments backfire on Fournette as he enters his rookie campaign?
I don't think they're going to backfire on him too much. I think he's going to have an outstanding career and have an outstanding year, but I think this was just a sign of disrespect to the game. I feel like you have to prove something in order to talk like that. He had, 9 carries for 30 yards, 31 yards, has not proven anything yet. It's not like he went out and showed up the whole defense. And no, I don't think I think it may have teams more and defenses more motivated to come at him, hit him a little harder, but I don't think it's going to affect him down the road. But I think it was a very immature, disrespectful sign to the rest of the league, and I don't think it's respecting the game at all to say it was easy if you had a pretty poor yards per carry average in your first game.
Yeah, it really grinds my gears. It seems over and over again we see this theme of former SEC players acting as if the SEC is just one lower step down from the NFL, when guys don't realize that there is a huge speed and physicality adjustment that every rookie has to go through. And Leonard Fournette, although he's very physically mature, very stout in the backfield, and showed a lot of production in college for never having great support on offense, especially a quarterback. But still, he can't be making these comments. It'd be one thing if he had 9 carries for 150 yards, but he had 9 carries for 30 yards and 1 touchdown. Just very pedestrian stats. And it seems, though, like you said, I don't know if he'll regret it from the standpoint of it's NFL football. You don't need any more motivation. Guys won't come at him more than they already would. True. But I also challenge Leonard Fournette to go back and watch tape of his quarterback Blake Bortles, because over his year and 3 seasons in the NFL, he's averaged 17 interceptions. He's been so turnover prone. He's a guy who he's going to be giving the other team the ball maybe as much as you some games. So you should probably hold off on talking like that, because as great as you may be, the Jacksonville Jaguars are a team that hasn't made the playoffs in many years and have a team that's rebuilding, and its offense is still a question mark. So maybe not to a fault of your own, but to a fault of your offense, you won't be that productive at times.
He's been a guy I've been following since he was a freshman at LSU, and since I saw him, he's about 6'1", 230 pounds. He reminds me of some of the best backs. He's also a great athlete. He's jumped over some guys in college. He's very fast as well. He can run about a 4.45 40. So he does have all the skills there, and I like his confidence. It's something I've seen for a couple of years now. He's very confident in himself, but at the same time, I feel like you need to back it up if you want to talk like that. And if you're 9 carries for 30 yards, you should definitely wait to say something like that. And also the reference to the SEC, I completely agree with you. People are acting like the SEC is the next thing from the NFL, but it may be the 3rd or 4th best college football conference right now. So I definitely don't think, maybe there's some faster athletes on certain teams in that conference, but other teams have found, like the Big Ten, maybe a more slow conference, but it's also stronger, more physical, and other teams like the Big 12 are more athletic and throw the football better. So every team, it's not all about being the most athletic conference, and there's other ways you can win football games. So I definitely don't think playing in the SEC is all of a sudden just makes him so much more prepared for the NFL.
Yeah, that type of comment brings me back to quotes of people saying of teams in the past, oh, Alabama could beat the Cleveland Browns,
Right.
Alabama could beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's just so ludicrous to me to think from a college level to a professional level where these guys have a higher level of coaching, a higher level of physicality, higher level of speed, and you don't have as much continuity with guys as you do in the NFL. It's just it's impossible for a college team to beat an NFL team, I always think. And one more point, I go back to, you mentioned Leonard Fournette was a stud and highly sought out since his freshman year at college, and his former coach, former LSU head coach, Leonard Fournette, went as far as to say that he has intangibles like Michael Jordan. So he's putting that on you. And at times, although your offensive support wasn't great in college, you did come up short in games where you were called upon to have big games in the SEC that could have put LSU in championship contention. So with that type of quote, it puts a lot of pressure on him. I'm expecting those type of expectations if that's coming from an coach in Les Miles, who I have a lot of respect for and what he says. So you have to act that way, and that kind of quote is not something you do this early in your career.
To be fair, in those games, his offense was very predictable and limited,
It was.
and Alabama had the best run defense in the country, or one of them, so it was very hard for him to even eke out those 40 yards or so that he did get. But yes, if you're saying things like this, the pressure on yourself is only going to build, and it's like, why are you doing this to yourself at this point? You haven't even played an NFL game yet, so
Right.
it doesn't make too much sense to me.
No.
Anyways, this was our second last show. We appreciate all the feedback we've been getting. This was a great show to have Mr. Swanson on as well, and we'll be back next week for one more time. Thanks for tuning in, and have a good night.
You are watching Jack and Size Big 5.